Good morning. Thank you for joining us for this short 30-minute webinar on post-approval AP workflow. We're excited to have you with us this morning. We're going to be talking about a workflow process that quite literally has been years in the making. We've had a mixture of organizations joining us this morning. Some of you are currently using FileBound to approve your vendor invoices. Some of you use FileBound, but for purposes other than accounts payable, and some of you are in the process of looking for an AP approval process and are considering FileBound as your solution. So I'd like to welcome all of you and thank you for joining us. I want to start by sharing with you a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. First, you will be muted during the webinar, but we will invite you to ask questions through the chat box that's located on the lower right-hand corner of your screen. So to participate and ask questions, you'll have two different options. The first is to write your question into the GoToWebinar chat box, which I've circled here on the screen. The second is to ask your question directly by raising your hand. And to do that, simply click on the small hand that you see in the GoToWebinar dialog box. And once you've clicked on that icon and the red arrow will turn to green, then we'll know that you have a question to ask. We will then unmute you and introduce you so that you can ask your question. Now we're going to hold the Q&A until the end of the webinar, but there should be plenty of time available for this. Second, I wanted to let you know that we're recording this session and we'll make that available to you later today. So feel free to share the webinar with colleagues or simply watch it over again. So with that, let's begin. My name's Jack Arnston, and joining me today is Bill Priton. Bill and I founded the Priton Group 16 years ago, and together we'll share with you this new and what we feel is an exciting addition to our AP solution. We'll begin by sharing what the post-approval workflow is and why we feel that you may need it. We'll also then explain to you how we organize and build a solution within FileBound, and then you'll actually see a demonstration and hopefully the benefits of using this. And finally, we'll wrap it up with the answers at the end, or the Q&A at the end. So here's a typical AP approval workflow. And you receive your vendor invoices, and there's a match that typically takes place, and that's done by the workflow to match the purchase order and the receiver or both. Anything that doesn't match gets routed to people via exceptions, and those people have an opportunity then to look and research and decide if they're going to approve or disapprove a workflow. They also may add or change the GL coding that's going on within it at the time. And ultimately, when we finish that, we send the data to the ERP or accounting system, and then we retain the documents within FileBound. So here's the issue that we see with this. The people who are typically approving an invoice are the department managers and the AP clerks. Now, their role is critical to the approval process, but they're not normally the people who sign the checks or approve the ACH. And typically, those people are going to do a final review before that payment is issued. These are, again, typically the CFO, the controller that do this, and up until now, we have had to defer that process to the accounting software for that final review. The problem is that you'll have the information in the accounting software, but the documents are all in FileBound. So that final approval for those people can be a little bit cumbersome. So to solve this problem, we're going to flip things on their side and take a fresh approach. We're still going to approve the invoices as you saw in the previous slide, but now we're going to assemble the vendor invoice along with all the supporting documents and then present them to you in a concise and easy to use format. And what we're going to deliver to you is, we feel, an intuitive interface that delivers all the information and the documents that are necessary to conduct this final review. And it's all going to happen within FileBound. So now I'm going to turn things over to Bill, and he'll take you through the remainder of the solution.
Thanks, Jack. So before the actual process demonstration I'm going to show you, let's just take a quick look at how we prepare the AP process and project so that we can eventually present the payment information and the supporting documents for your review. So as you can see from the slide, there are two primary elements that we work with and organize to help build that review process. The data, which on the left-hand side, which consists of the vendor information, the geocoding, the approvers involved in the process, and the approver hierarchies, oftentimes referred to as the ladder, which allows for the additional approvals as necessary based on dollar thresholds, as an example. We also design our AP solution to allow the capture and organization of the documents related to the AP invoice that's being approved. These projects are projects such as the purchase orders, the receiving documents, the vendor invoice itself, other supporting documents, and then finally the payment, which is either usually a check or an ACH transaction. By organizing all of the data and the documents in the AP approval process, we can easily then gather and consolidate all the AP transaction documents to create that packet that you'll see in just a minute. So allowing for the final signer to have that opportunity, as Jack mentioned earlier, to review the packet directly within the FileBound solution. Now that we've discussed where the data and the documents reside and how they're organized, let's look at how we build the review solution by fetching and consolidating the voucher, and then all of the documents associated with it. When the payment is issued and sent to FileBound for storage, our process reviews the payment data and it creates the review packet from all of the supporting documents, consisting of, for example, the invoice, the purchase order, and a receiving or otherwise supporting documents. The packet is then stored as a supporting document within the payment file itself. And so with that explanation, let's just take a quick second and now let me show you that in action within FileBound. So once you log into FileBound as a user doing this review process, you can log in and then go directly to your assignments and you'll see your payment approval workflow steps sitting, waiting for you right here. In this case, I'm going to grab all 3 documents that are waiting for me to review and sign. We can have a large list or a small list, that's fine. We click the review button or the view button. And what FileBound is going to do is it's going to load in the entire set of documents and packets. And so, for example, let me just reduce my screen size a little bit here. You'll notice that we have our payment packets on the left, which consist of the payment and the supporting documents, our payment detail as well on the left. Our imagers are now displayed side by side, our invoice and our packet, and then we have our workflow steps on the right, and then down below any reconciliation information that we need. In this case, we are looking at the invoice amount, the PO amount, looking for any inventory adjustments necessary or that have been made, and then we show the invoice number that's associated with it. Now, I loaded all 3 documents in as a part of my workflow, so you can see that I have my 3 documents in the workflow, and I'm sitting on my very first document. As I begin to review it, you'll see I have my payment, and then I have my invoice, my purchase order, and any supporting documents like this packing slip that help me to better understand and feel comfortable with this payment. I can also check out to see if I have any inventory adjustments, and if not, and I'm happy with this particular transaction, I can approve this for payment. Now what's going to happen is it's going to load the very next document in line for me. So Originally, it had my American Solutions. Now I moved me down to CDW. Now with CDW, it's kind of interesting because it is actually paying 4 different invoices with this single payment. What we do is we create this packet now with all 4 sets of documents that substantiate each one of these invoice payments in order. So this is the first invoice, its purchase order, its packing slip, and then we move to the next invoice. And the same thing, its purchase order and any of its supporting documents. Now, as I review this, I might be also looking down here and seeing that I might have an inventory adjustment, for example. Well, I can just slide down to my invoice associated with this and start to review all of my documents, including my purchase order and my packing slip, to better understand why I had this $10 inventory adjustment. So in this case, I have the opportunity to sort of flag, by virtue of looking at this data, something I may want to review. I may look at that and completely understand why there's an inventory adjustment, and I can just leave it go. And so then at that point, again, I can approve this payment, and you'll start to see this pattern repeat. Right? It's going to drop me down to my very next invoice, payment, and then the invoice and its supporting documents. And I can move it on for payment. And then, as you can see, if I review or if I refresh my screen, all my workflow assignments have been completed. And I have basically signed all my checks. But now, as a signer, I can go much more comfortably into understanding what's happening in those transaction packets, so I can feel more comfortable signing the checks and or authorizing the ACH payments. So with that said, I'm going to turn it back over to Jack, and any questions that might have come up during our demonstration and our presentation.
Thanks, Bill. We intentionally wanted to keep this short. We respect your time, but there's a lot going on in here that you're not seeing. And I think the first thing is maybe, Bill, just to talk a little bit about how we know or how we get the information for building these packets, for fetching the documents. You know, what is that process? How does it work?
Sure, Jack. We have a process we've developed. FileBound has the ability to extend the product through use of scripts and API calls and development and programming. And what we've done is we've developed a process that takes a look at the invoices that are paid. We match them to our payment document. And what we do is, based on the match to that payment document, we go into the invoices project, we go into the purchase orders project, we go into the receivers project, and any other project we might have had created that associates documents to that invoice transaction. And we collect or fetch and then consolidate those documents into a packet in order of presentment on the check. Just as I showed with the CDW, we paid for 4 invoices, and we created our packets in invoice order, and then we create the packet within invoice order in the order that you want to see those documents. So in this case, we show the invoice, then we show the purchase order, and then we show any supporting documents that might be in the file, whether that's a bill of lading, a packing slip, a quote, anything that is considered a supporting document to help substantiate that invoice. And then we repeat that process and that order for as many invoices that were paid for by that payment or that check or that ACH.
So the document that we're creating with the supporting documents, that's a PDF file, correct? And it's being stored in a project within FileBound?
Correct. It is stored as a PDF, consolidated multi-page, and it is stored as the supporting document inside the payments project. So when we go to the payments project as a function of our workflow, we have both documents there that we can present in that unique viewer modification that we made here to our viewers. So we can show the payment on the left and that associated supporting documents packet on the right. But that's all stored directly in the payments project as two different kinds of documents, the payment and the supporting documents.
So everybody that's on the call here understands the licensing structure within FileBound, and it's licensed by, well, I guess I should say most of the people on here have a license that's licensed by the number of documents that are saved to the system. We do have some folks on that use the concurrent model. There was conversation when we set this up with the first user that had it. Can we just get rid of all these other supporting documents that we're saving in all these other FileBound projects, since we have everything consolidated into one PDF? And Bill, I don't know if you want to talk about what we decided with that and why we made the decision that we did.
Absolutely. The answer is yes, you can. However, our recommendation and our sort of stance on that is we advise that you don't. And that's for a couple of reasons. First of all, although we can consolidate, which does help to minimize the number of quote unquote extra documents in the system by consolidating to a single PDF and placing it in the payments project. But there are times in which you're going to want to have audit capabilities for your documents that go outside of your payment and more so into your invoices and their supporting documents. So by having the invoice, the purchase order, the receiving documents still residing in FileBound, it provides you the ability to get to those documents very quickly and easily. The other advantage of keeping your documents in FileBound in their initial projects as well as the single consolidated PDF in the payments project is that it allows other users who may not have direct access to the payments project but may only have access to the invoices project to see the documents that they need to see, provided that they have the security to go in and actually look at things like invoices, purchase orders, receiving documents, and the like. And so, again, we understand the importance of managing the number of documents being consumed within your license structure, but at the same time, we try to match that against use, security, and audit.
So another component to that we discussed and talked about is that when you look at a life cycle of a accounts payable document, you need to retain it legally for 7 years, but you don't really access it much after, say, the 3 or 4 year period. After that, it's just kind of an archive and rarely where you look it up. So there's also the option to take and delete the individual documents that are saved in all the different projects, let's just say after the 4th year, but you still have the documents in the consolidated PDF. And so that's also a way to help control your license count from a FileBound perspective as well. Bill, can you talk a little bit about, if someone's going through and doing this approval and looking at things, the vast majority is going to be approved and the payments are going to be made, but there will on occasion be something that gets caught and will be rejected by the person doing this approval, this final approval. So what are the options when that happens?
Yep. So in today's demonstration, you saw that I simply had the button to approve and or reassign. And that was just a simplified method so that for a demonstration, it keeps it simple. However, within the workflow, we have the ability for the approver to, in a sense, reject or suspend the approval of that one payment while continuing on to make additional approvals so that if you have 10 payments and 9 of them need to go through, one can be exception. We can place a button on the right-hand side where the workflow was that can suspend it and or send it back to the original approver of that invoice or those invoices with a question to provide additional explanation so that even though within the review packet and the payment document itself, it may not have been clear enough to the signer as to why there may have either been a discrepancy in inventory adjustment or why that invoice is being paid at all. Whatever the questions are, we can provide a button that will then send that to somebody for clarification. Usually it's the person that was the original approver that helps to provide that, because they're the ones that are more intimately knowledgeable of the transaction itself.
And just to clarify, the licensing level of file bond that you would need for this, obviously there's the 3 silos. We have document management, workflow, and enterprise. Which license is required for this?
For this process, Jack, we need to have the enterprise license because it requires minimally the workflow license, which is the middle. And depending on some of the other processes we may employ in addition to this, we would recommend the enterprise. But to begin with, we can get you started very quickly and easily with just the workflow license.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions. If anyone has any questions, feel free to write them down. Wait just a second because I think there might be one coming in. Well, while I wait on that, just a couple of other quick things with this. So, Bill, if you want to maybe just kind of advance
Absolutely.
The screen. Just a reminder, I mentioned that we're going to be recording this, and I will send out a link to everyone, so you'll have that. And that link will take you over to our Priton group YouTube channel, in which you can view this, but also you'll see other webinars and other recordings that we have out there too. So feel free to look through those. If you have any additional questions, feel free to contact Bill or myself. We'll be happy to talk to you about those. Hold on one second. Question, would scanning this in the process take care of the post-process scan? Steve, I may need to reach out to you too. Not quite sure what you're asking on that, so I may have to reach out to you and answer that for you directly. Sorry about that. All right. The only other thing we're going to mention to you is just kind of a reminder that we have for the last 2 years now been offering a service for processing or scanning in, I shouldn't say scanning, but extracting the data off of your vendor invoices, and we're doing it now for quite a few people. And we've got a number of people on here that are still using Cygen to do that. It's a great option. I know it works really well for a lot of people. We've got some people doing really high volumes with that. We've got one client that does over 5,000 invoices a day through Cygen, and it works really, really well for him. But with that said, if you're looking for maybe a different alternative for that, something that takes that lift off of your side and not have to do that, keep in mind that we do have a service that we provide for that. We'd be happy to get you more information on that as well. So with that, Bill, anything else that you have?
No. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We hope that this helped explain, and we hope that you have a wonderful holiday season.
Absolutely. Yeah. Happy holidays, and thank you so much for attending. So have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.